Parents abandoned their responsibilities, treating us like co-parents instead of children, until my marriage shattered that illusion. I, 40 male, come from a big family. I'm the second oldest of 9 kids. My older sister, Jane, is just a year older than me. There is a 6-year gap between me and the next sibling, then my mom had a kid every 2 to 3 years. Since Jane and I were the oldest, we always helped with the little kids and the chores around the house. In fact, it was common for my parents and other adults to refer to us as Jane and Op and the kids. It's like Jane and I were not considered children, it's more like we were 2 other adults living in the house. We were homeschooled, so we were home all the time. Part of my job is that I would wake up, make breakfast for the kids, then get them started with their school or activities before I started my own schoolwork. Jane would sleep in because she was more of a night owl, and it was her job to help at night with the baby, because there was always a baby. Jane and I did most of the chores around the house. We took turns either cleaning the kitchen or doing the laundry, of which there was a lot. I did all the guy stuff, like mowing the yard and taking out the trash. As I got older, I would delegate some of these chores to my younger brothers, but it was still my responsibility to make sure it got done. Once I was old enough to drive, I would run errands and take the kids everywhere. I can't tell you how many times I would take the kids to things like playdates or doctor's appointments. I would often tuck the kids in bed and tell them stories. To me these things were all just normal, but looking back on it I was more like a second dad to the kids than a brother. Jane and I did have a lot of freedom as teenagers to go out with our friends, if the chores were done. We didn't have cell phones back then. If we wanted to go out we would just tell our parents we were going and they didn't care, as long as we were back by the next morning. I moved out when I was 20, but I still spent a lot of time at my parents', and one of my younger siblings was almost always at my house. One brother, JJ, pretty much lived with me since he was 14 because he and our mom didn't get along. When JJ was 17 he got in a wreck and he called me instead of calling dad, because I was just the one who handled those kinds of things. During all of this time my parents always talked about how important it was for Jane and I to help with the kids because they were so busy with their ministry. I can't count how many times I had to drop what I was doing to take care of something because mom or dad were counseling someone. Sorry, I feel like I'm rambling. I hope I have painted an accurate picture of my childhood. Let's move on. I had not really dated much, but when I was 25 I met and started dating Anne. We fell in love fast, and got married less than a year later. My younger siblings love Anne. She is a great cook and hostess. Our house became the hangout spot. My younger siblings started calling her Mama Anne, something they still do to this day. We have now been married 15 years and have 2 kids of our own. My mom and Jane did not like Anne. Jane and Anne get along okay now, but Anne and my mom do not have a good relationship. I never understood why, but I think I have finally figured out it's because they see it as Anne having taken me away. As Anne and I focused on our relationship and started a family, I spent less and less time doing things for my parents. My dad liked Anne at first, but over the past few years their relationship has soured. Throughout the years my dad has made comments to me about keeping up my responsibilities. One time he called me about one of the younger kids, who had gotten in a fight with my mom, and said you better get your brother and change his attitude. It's not okay how he treated your mom and you are going to make him apologize. A few years ago Anne and I set some boundaries with my parents, telling them we were not going to raise or discipline their kids. Our home is always open to my siblings, but we no longer let my parents try and use us to straighten them up. My parents have not taken this well. About a year ago Anne injured her foot and couldn't walk for a while. Just as she was getting better, I was diagnosed with kidney disease, which then turned into kidney failure. I've had several surgeries, with another one coming in a few weeks. It's been a rough year. During this time my parents have not only refused to help, they have actively made things harder for us. Things like promising to help with our kids but then canceling at the last minute, usually because something ministry related came up. Recently my sister-in-law, who lives in another state, had a baby, and my mom has been staying with her and helping for the past 6 weeks. My sil has said that mom is a godsend and is so wonderful. My dad has gone to help every weekend. This hurts me, because my mom wouldn't give us a single night to help with our youngest when he was born. Anyway, I'm sorry this post has turned out longer than I thought it would. I needed to get some of this off my chest. This weekend I was talking to another sister and telling her how I don't understand why mom and dad don't treat me like they do the rest of the kids, even Jane. It's like I'm not one of their children. And it just kind of hit me that they resent me for getting married and starting my own family and leaving them to raise their own kids. Part of me is relieved to finally realize why they treat me like they do, and part of me is sad. I'm kind of scared about this upcoming surgery, and I really wish I had a parent I could talk to about it. But I don't feel like I have parents, just some people that I co-parented my siblings with. Update 1. About Jane, my older sister. Jane did get married and start a family, about 2 years after I did. Jane and I had a falling out and didn't speak for several years, but we are okay now, just not very close. Our falling out was more about religion than anything. She is very religious like my parents, while I am not. I am religious and we attend church, but it's not our whole life like it is for my parents and Jane. Younger siblings, the youngest is 22, so they are all adults now. The second to youngest passed away several years ago, so there are 8 of us now. I am very close with all of my younger siblings. They still come hang out at my house all the time, and they are all great aunts and uncles to my kids. All of them, including Jane, are upset with how my parents treated me this past year. Help with my kids. While I am disappointed in my parents for not helping, I do not need their help. Anne and I have close friends, plus we both have siblings that help. Anne's parents live far away, but they help when they can. We really are okay and feel very blessed and loved with all help we have received. Therapy. Part of my kidney treatment plan includes access to a therapist, and I love her. She has been great in helping me learn to live with an illness. I'm not sure if she is the right person to speak with about my parents, but I will ask her and see if she can refer someone if not. I will wait until after my surgery to bring this up, as I need to just focus on that right now. Setting boundaries. When I say my parents won't help, it's not that they say they won't help, it's that they offer to help and then either bail at the last minute or they change the plan so much that it causes Anne and I a lot of stress. A few months ago Anne was sick and my mother offered to pick our kids up from school. It's a long story, but she kept changing things and making it very complicated and my youngest ended up being left alone for a little while and he got scared. After that, I had a harsh talk with my parents and told them how disappointed I was in them, and how I needed to focus on my health and they were making things worse. I told them they are not allowed to take my kids anywhere, and they are not allowed to just drop by at my house, and in fact they were not even allowed to offer to help, because my mom doesn't take no for an answer and will nag until she wears me down. My parents were mad about this but all 7 of my siblings took my side and rallied about me, and so my parents have respected that so far. Going no contact. A lot of people recommended going no contact. I don't want that. I still love my parents, even though they have not been great parents. My kids love them too, and I don't want to take that away. They are good grandparents, when they show up. I don't think my parents are awful people. I think they had this vision of how they wanted to have this big family and this big ministry, and I think they just didn't realize the responsibilities they put on Jane and I. I have spoken to them in the past and expressed how it was messed up that they put so much on us as kids and they have apologized. Putting my parents on blast at their church. Several people recommended going to their church and telling people how they have treated me. You don't understand this church. They would praise my parents for putting God and the ministry above everything else. These super religious people are crazy. I guess that's it for now. My surgery is in less than 2 weeks, so I'm going to focus on that. I'm going to put this thing with my parents on the back burner and later I will decide what, if anything, I'm going to do. Update 2. My surgery was last week and it is going better than expected. All the surgeries and treatments in the past year felt like it was just keeping me alive, but with this surgery, kidney transplant, I feel like I'm working towards getting my normal life back. It's been hard and painful, but I was expecting it to be worse, so I can't complain at all. Anne is always telling me that she doesn't get enough credit for being funny, so the fact that so many of you laughed when she told me I was pretty has made her happy. She said I like these Reddit people. This whole post started because I was having a conversation with one of my sisters. I'll call her 6, since I can't keep making up names. Plus, she is following this thread and will hate that I am calling her that. 6 had had a fight with our parents and I was sharing with her that Anne and I had recently set strong boundaries with them and encouraged her to do the same. So she did, and they did not take it well. This led to several conversations with different siblings, and both 5 and 9 also decided to set some boundaries. This has also led to other siblings deciding to confront our parents about how they have treated me this past year while I have been sick. Jane, the oldest, called me the day before my surgery to check on me, and we ended up talking about our childhood. We have not been close for a number of years, however I feel like we bonded on this call. It was interesting talking to her as an adult and reliving some things. She has been in therapy for a few years, and she said sometimes she will be talking, and her therapist will stop her and say, "Jane, you just casually rolled through some messed up stuff. We need to stop and unpack this." For a long time I have blamed her for the way she treated me when we were younger, but now I'm beginning to understand that she was also just a kid trying to cope. I have a lot more grace for her now. We have been texting a lot the past few weeks. My parents did come visit after the surgery, but we didn't talk about any family drama. My siblings have said they are not taking these new boundaries well at all. I hope that one day they wake up and realize that all 8 of their children are disappointed in them and they work to be better people, but I'm not holding my breath. It seems they are placing all the blame like they normally do. This is just an attack by the devil. Anne and I decided that moving forward we are going to continue low contact with strong boundaries. With such a large family, going no contact would be hard and create a lot of awkward situations where we would still have to see them. We have also talked to our kids and they have both expressed they want to have a relationship with their grandparents. While I do not expect my parents to change, I do believe they will respect our boundaries. My attitude towards them has also changed. I no longer feel like I owe them anything. We will continue a relationship with them because it is what's best for my family, not because they deserve it. Lastly, I received a recommendation for a family therapist and I have an appointment scheduled for next month. Now on to second story. Confronted my cousin about her husband ogling me. Now she's smearing my name to family while he acts like the victim. I, 23F, have lived with my cousin Rose and her husband Dumbo, both 33, for over a year for economical reasons. We have had a lot of issues, but I could handle them. 6 months ago I began to realize that Dumbo was looking at me more. I've always been sure to wear appropriate clothing in front of him and I've never even been without a bra outside of my room. Even so, I noticed that his eyes were going to other places constantly, like my boobs, ass, or more below. I thought that it was just my imagination, but just in case, I started wearing around the house oversized hoodies and sweatpants and nothing body fitting. But I still noticed that when we would have conversations, he would deliberately stare at other places. One night, as I was lying on the couch laughing at a video on my phone, he came up to me, asked what I was laughing at, and before I could answer, he bent down and put his head on my boobs at an angle he could look at the phone screen. I was in shock, and I am ashamed that I just let it happen. That's when I knew I had to tell someone, especially my parents, but I didn't have the courage, so I stuck it out. More comments were made, but the one that disgusted me the most was when he said, "Hey, is it me or have your boobs gotten bigger?" I asked why the F he was looking at me that way and that he was so off for that, but he just laughed. I got the courage to tell my stepmom and dad, and they were both shocked. They said that I needed to move out ASAP, and that I also needed to talk to Rose about Dumbo's behavior, and I would also need to talk to Dumbo. It took a bit of pushing, but I finally got the nerve to sit down with Rose and tell her everything that had happened, and this was the reason I was moving. She said that she would talk to him, but in the end this was my problem with him and I needed to fix it. I thought that after she spoke to him he would come to me and apologize or say something at least, but that never happened. 2 days after, I told Rose that I was expecting an apology on his behalf, and I was going to talk to him myself, about everything. She said that would be useless because he said he was never going to talk to me again, as he claims he did nothing and apologizing would mean him owning up to what I claimed happened, that both of them were going to wait until my dad was back in town so he could solve everything. He claims that I am just trying to put my family against him and ruin his reputation. I left to go to work after that, but in my mental state I forgot something, and when I came back I caught her talking to her mom, them talking about how they didn't believe anything I had said and that the three of them would tell my parents that I'm trying to divide the family. With 3 people ganging up against me, I am worried that they'll manage to change my parents' mind. I think I fucked up by bringing this whole thing up. I may have just ruined my whole relationship with everyone, possibly ruined a marriage, and in the end I'm starting to even doubt my own judgment on what could have just been a misunderstanding. I fucked up by not staying quiet. Update 1. Unfortunately, the result was not a pretty one. I spoke to my parents and the whole conversation was just off. To begin with, they don't understand why it took me so long to speak up. I tried explaining that for me this is a very sensitive topic, and on top of that I was scared of how everyone would react. Second, it is well known that I usually have a very strong attitude and don't have an issue with telling people to fuck off or standing up for myself, which in their eyes makes it strange that I wasn't able to do that with Dumbo. Yes, I don't have a problem with doing that to people that have no major impact on my life, and to be honest, even today I am asking myself why I didn't react this way with him. Although I wanted to, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. But I also know that if I did, Dumbo and Rose would run off to my parents complaining about how disrespectful I am, and it would have been messy either way. Third, they say things don't add up because in the end I never took their advice, which was to remove myself from the situation, and second, to have a conversation with Rose and Dumbo. I have found a nice place to live as of December 1st, and I spoke to Rose as I honestly didn't want, nor did I feel comfortable speaking to her husband in the beginning. Like I said in the first post, when I told Rose I was going to speak to Dumbo, she said no because he wasn't going to listen, and she agrees that we have nothing to talk about. I explained this to my parents, but they weren't having it. They said that I need to face Dumbo as he is the one causing the issue for me. I told them very clearly that I wasn't going to force him to sit down and listen to me, but according to them that is exactly what I should be doing. My dad says that at the end of the day, I don't know what Dumbo's intentions were, and this won't get solved until he and I talk it out. That a lot of people look at me and it's not that big of a deal. He's angry that I've done nothing to solve this matter myself, and even if I know that Dumbo won't listen, that's not the point is trying. I reminded him that he wasn't just looking, it was constant comments, staring and putting his head on my boobs. I told him once again that I wasn't going to force a grown man to listen to me. But he kept on saying that I wasted their time by not taking their advice. Finally, my parents ended it by saying that because I haven't been transparent with them and it seems like I basically wasted their time, then that is how they'd like to keep our relationship, with a wall up. I had prepared myself to take a step back from my parents if needed, but the fact that they did it because I wasted their time just hurts. I feel like they went into this convo with the mindset of not believing me, and nothing I could have said would have changed that. Just the fact that they're telling me to force this man that's 10 years older than me to sit down and listen, knowing damn well that because I don't want to be alone with him, his wife would have to be there and she'd be jumping down my throat every 2 seconds, is like telling me to flip a hot pancake with no gloves and to try to not get burnt, knowing damn well that I will. He never offered to be moderator. I had a feeling that this would have been the result, so in a way I do feel like I did fuck up. In the end, Rose and Dumbo are perfectly happy, or so it seems. They both still have a great relationship with my parents. My relationship with all of them is messed up and I'm feeling pretty depressed. Once I move out completely, I will be in a better mental state. I won't have any toxic people in my life. I'll be saving money as the new place is a lot cheaper, and most importantly I know that I still have people that love and support me, even if it's very few. Update 2. I didn't expect to be updating again. I thought that everything had ended when my parents blocked me, but no. Since my last post, my parents still have me blocked, but only on social media. They have been calling me since and telling me that it's up to me to make this right. That basically my entire family is mad at me for trying to destroy the family dynamics, that because I still haven't confronted Dumbo, they all think that I am lying and blew what could have been a simply awkward moment into a big deal so that I could have a proper reason to move out and be independent. According to them, unless I speak to Dumbo face to face, I will have proven their theory of simply lying to get out of the house with anyone questioning it. They have made it clear that they think I have fucked up by bringing this to light, and if I choose not to confront Dumbo, they will proceed to have me blocked and will have me marked as a liar. Oh my god, the pressure I have been under to speak to this man has been making me sick at this point. Yes, I could simply block my parents on everything as well, but that wouldn't stop them from showing up to my house, and I'm too much of a coward to do so anyway. Even though I'm freaking out, I have decided to talk to Dumbo tonight once I get the courage to do so, just to get my parents off my back, because I can't handle another phone call with them where they accuse me of being a liar. Deep down I know I didn't fuck up by telling my family about Dumbo harassing me, but I swear to God that if I had known everything that was to come out of this, I would have simply moved out and kept my mouth shut. Any advice is needed, and I deeply appreciate those that personally message to check up on me after my first post. Update 3. Why did I wait 6 months to bring this up? This is a very serious accusation to bring up. I wanted to be absolutely sure that I wasn't imagining anything and that I was sure of this. I was also terrified of how my family would react. 2. Why didn't I speak to Dumbo from the very beginning? I didn't have the courage and didn't know how he'd react, so I went to my parents for guidance. 3. Why didn't I bring this up until after I moved out? Simple, I thought my parents would have my back. Now to the update after my last post. I spoke to Dumbo. Even though many advised me not to, I caved and I confronted him. I recorded the entire conversation like many suggested and even made sure to send it to a few people just in case. Dumbo was quiet the whole time I spoke and apologized, even though he admits he stands by the fact he did nothing. His wife, my cousin, Rose, was laughing, snorting and making side remarks the whole time. The urge to tell her to fuck off was big, but I didn't want to make things worse for myself. The conclusion of our talk was this: they don't want to move on from this, but we will be civil, we will keep communication to a minimum until and after I move. He will make sure to never be alone around me, and lastly that our conversation was basically pointless and that even if I had spoken to him first place like everyone said, he says the result still would have been the same, meaning we would all be divided. I told my parents all of this morning as they wanted to know how the talk went, and even though I told them this was all said by Dumbo, they still said that I was trying to justify my reasons for not wanting to have the conversation with him, and basically they think I only caved into this to prove that I wasn't lying, because in the end, I never showed any signs of abuse or said anything. They have made clear that I have dived the whole family and that it's going to take time for them to heal from the pain and distress I have caused, and that in the future, my family may or may not reach out to me again. After all of this, my biggest fuck up was how I went about this. I should have waited until I was in my new place and away from these people. At least that way a lot of this could have been avoided. Many have said that because I am 23 I am old enough to deal with this alone. To those who said this, thank you. I have learned that family will not always be there to back you up. Speaking up will never be a fuck up, but the way you go about things most definitely can be, as you can see here. If I had done, said or acted in few different ways, I think the outcome could have been a bit different. In the end, I know I still have people that love and support me. My move out date is just around the corner and eventually my mental health will be okay. In the meantime I will focus on packing and being around those I love.